Hello everyone. So today in this video, we are going to see how we are able to save the sequence which we are able to get from our drag and sort interface. So we had already created this interface where I can sort things or sequence my chapters. So let's say what is Laravel is the first. Then for some reason I want to show how to install Laravel through Composer, and then what we need to run Laravel. Okay, if that is the sequence, now I have the ability to update. Once the sequence is updated, if I refresh, I'll see the sequence is maintained. If, for example, now I want to make it the third update, sequence is saved. If I click refresh, I get the new sequence. So in this video, let's look at what changes I have made to save the sequence onto the API, and also what changes were required on the front end. So let's start with the React app. So inside the React app, obviously I'm inside the course view page. So in that, what I have done is inside the pages, course view ID TSX. First of all, I introduced a new variable, a state variable called sorted. Why? Because I want that button to be only visible when there is an update. Okay. Now, obviously, because we have a button, so this is my block of code inside the render function, which is displaying the button. So in the header 3, h3, right, I have this span which is showing the update button. It is conditionally rendered. So if my sorted is true, only then this button will be visible. And on click of this button, I have update sort. Okay. So now let's get back to our state. So we have this new state, which I'm initializing with default value as false. Obviously, because when I start the page or when the component is loaded, there is no sort done. Okay. So with that done, when we have our handle sort method being called, this is being called when I move things around, right? So when this function is called, the first thing which I do is I set the flag to true. So it was initially set to false. I have now set it to true. Okay. And now any subsequent changes that I do will keep this flag as true, which means if I first drag this and then I drag this and then I do this, whatever, the flag is still there because I haven't resetted it. Okay. Let's move on. And this is the only change. This is one line of change, which you can see this green, right? Then on click of that button, we are calling update sort. As you can see, on click of this button, I'm calling update sort, which is an async function because I'm going to make an API call. So the first thing which I have done is I have created an array, a constant called sequence. Okay. This is the data which I'm going to send as post data. Now, what I did was obviously based on the new sequence of the chapters, I pushed the ID and I pushed the weight. So ID contains the chapter ID and weight contains the index, which means I'll get something. Or why don't I console log it so that you understand what is happening. So let's do that. Okay. Let me go to the app and come over here and here, update. So you can see the sequence says ID is 3, weight is 0, ID is 2, weight is 1, ID is 1, and the weight is 2. Okay, so this is the updated sequence that I got. Then the next thing that I did was obviously I created this post data. I need to change the sequence, but I also need to send the course ID to which this sequence is important, right? So I did that. Course ID is ID. The ID I am getting obviously as a prop to this component because this is a page component, and that page component from here gets the param ID. Okay. If you remember, the component is square bracket ID, which means that parameter is available to me, right? So that ID is also available to me, and the sequence is a sequence. This is same as doing sequence. So with JavaScript, you can get rid of that and you can say sequence colon sequence. This is the short form. Now, obviously, I'm getting the response by calling a service method. The service method is pretty straightforward. Like any, I have a static method, an async function, which first gets the headers, makes an API call, a post call to the URL service dot chapter sequence update. This is the API route which I have created. We will see that when we go through our API code. I'm sending the data and the headers. If I get a result with status code of 204, I return the result. Okay, that's all there is in the service file, nothing fancy. So let's see, I got the response. Then I check here. If I got the response as 204, which means the API call was successful, I set the sort to false now because the updation is done. We have the latest sort which came from the front end, so we can set it back to false, right? If that's not happening, I'm just setting it to null. Okay, and yeah, I think that's about it in terms of the front end code. Okay, these are all the changes. So let me quickly see. URL service, I had added the API call. Chapter service is where we make the service call to the API. That's pretty straightforward, and yes, we went over all of them. This is where is it? Yeah, the state variable and everything were introduced, right? So that's about it. Okay, now let's go back to our code for Laravel where we have the API. So inside the API, I have this new route. It says chapter slash sequence update, calls the chapter controller's store update method. In here, first of all, I have this basic validation in place. Okay, the validation is that the course ID is required and it should be in the table of courses. And the this is exists rule where it says it should exist in the courses table and the ID should match the course ID. Then I am expecting an array of sequence. Okay, that's about it. Then what I do is I load up all the chapters for this particular course. So let's look at the database once. So inside the database, I have course ID 1. It has 3 records. So I'm pulling up all the 3 records. Once I have all these 3 records, what I do is I save the sequence as a collection. I loop through the collection items. I'm getting the chapters inside as well. And then in the row, if you remember, what we were doing was we had ID. Okay. And let me see. Or why don't we look at the console log? So we have ID 3 weight 0, right? So in here, what I'm saying is ID is 3, weight is 0, something like this, right? And let's say ID is 2, this is 1. So what happens is when I'm looping through this sequence, I get the row ID. Okay, so I'm looping through each sequence, which I just converted into a collection. Then as a row, I'm saying, give me the chapter which has ID 1. Why am I able to do this? Because I have already pulled the entire collection over here. These are not individual queries. These are being picked up from the collection. The only thing which I couldn't figure out is how do you bulk update, and hence what is going to happen is these update queries, right? When I fire the save command, these are going to result in individual update queries. So yes, we are right now looping through the records and I'm firing query inside a loop. It's a little dangerous, but I feel that it's not going to be a very, I would say, very popular activity. Let's put it that way. Okay, not a very frequent activity, I would rather say, and hence I'm doing this. I may choose to have a rate limit as well at some point. If I feel that someone is playing around with this, then I'll put a late rate limit. But yes, the reason I haven't done an auto save is to limit the number of API calls. So the user needs to set the ID and then hit the update button. That makes it a little more performant, because the user is going to hit only once after doing this sequencing, or maybe twice. I don't know. A normal user will do that. If someone is trying to game the system, then it's a different ball game. Okay. So yes, so chapter, I get the chapter, I set the new order to the row weight, and then I hit the update. Okay, and in response, I'm sending 204. It's a 204 because it's an update. I don't have any content to send. Okay, I could have sent true, but then, as you know, in here we are expecting 204. So yes, and that's about it. I mean, once this code is ready, we have our entire thing, getting updated with the new sequence. But yes, one thing which I had to change in my Laravel code was the courses relation. Initially, if you see, it was something like this. Okay, so what happens is, let's just see what is the sequence now. This 1 is 0, 2 is 3. So this thing, what do we need to run Laravel, should come third, but it's coming second. Why? That was happening because in the relation I had the order by as descending, but then I had to change that a bit. I said order by weight. This is required because otherwise my sorting has no value. Response is 500. Why is that? Order by weight. Oh, sorry, not weight, order. Now it should work. Right, it does. So this is my third ID. If you see, creating a Laravel project with Composer. That's 3, but its weight is 1. So 0, 1, 2. So the sequence should be 1, 3, and 2, and that's what we get. Okay. So yeah, that's the small video on how I implemented this new feature. Okay, I'll push this update in some time, and you can play around with it in the application. I'll add more features to it. But yeah, do share your comments on what you feel about this video and this series. If you like this video, do click on the thumbs up icon, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.